Welcome to Loving Me Before I Love You with Tammy Nicole, the podcast dedicated to you loving and putting yourself first. Others have come first in your life for years, and you know it's time for that to change. You're about to be empowered to set healthy boundaries, confidently have hard conversations, unapologetically put yourself first, and live the peaceful life you deserve. Remember, self-love is essential, and loving yourself sets the stage for every other love in your life. So get ready to embrace self-love like never before with your host, Coach Tammy Nicole.
Hey, it is Transformation Tuesday. Can you guys believe we are already in the month of October? The month of October is something that's super special to me, though, because it is Breast Cancer and Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And this month, we really strive to shine bright on our survivors of both domestic violence and breast cancer. But we're going to start this season off with breast cancer. And I have a special guest, and she is a breast cancer survivor. But we are going to talk about how she has thrived. Because as a survivor, you are a thriver. And so we are going to get her stories of hope, resilience, and recovery. Her name is also Tammy. So y'all have just entered the Tammy Show because we're going to be Tammying around here. Welcome to the show, Tammy.
Thank you, Tammy. I am super duper excited to be here, and I'm really excited to share part of my testimony. I just appreciate you for just having this platform where you just offer the opportunity for others to share this particular testimony and also to inspire others. So I am excited to share.
I'm
Thank you.
excited for you to be here. So breast cancer for me, it is a personal it's a personal subject to my own heart, for more than one reason, but mainly because my mom, she had breast cancer, and I went through that process with her when I was young. She was still young when she passed away, but I was in high school and going through the different visits and going through chemo with her, and just watching her battle the process, because I mean it's a huge process, and just being able to be with her and then say wow, like, because she went through it, she had the what they call them lumpectomies, and she did everything, but she never had a mastectomy. She just had her lymph nodes removed, and she went into remission for a few years, and then it came back, and then it's when she did not get to like actually make it on the other side from the second bout. But that process alone was a lot. So this subject for me is very, very, very dear, and I'm excited to kind of help with your testimony, being able to help other women on their journey, because a lot of us are suffering in silence too.
Absolutely, absolutely. I thank God for bringing me to it, but also bringing me through it.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I was young. I was under the age of 40. And I tell women all the time that, you know, when I started checking my called boobies,
Yeah.
my grandmother on my father's side and my auntie on my father's side both were breast cancer survivors, and they always told me to check my breast, me and my sister. So I I did, and then at the age of 32, I had just moved to the DMV area, which is DC, Maryland metro area. Just moved to this area. And my first doctor's appointment, I asked my doctor to check something in my right breast. And it was like a small, like hard, felt like a pebble in my breast, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a little tender to the touch, but it didn't hurt much.
Mm-hmm.
It was real small. And I thought maybe something bit me or something. I didn't know what it would have been.
Right.
And I was just like, I don't know what this is, but it wasn't nothing that would alarm you, so to speak. And
Mhm.
so my doctor was like, well, I don't really like the way that feels. Let me send you for a, what do you call it? A mammogram. And then, we'll go from there. So I went
Mhm.
to the mammogram and they said, well, you have dense tissue in there. And it looks like there's like a little spot in here of dense tissue. I was like, okay. So they wanted to do an ultrasound of my breast. And the ultrasound further confirmed that it was some dense tissue that was inductal, so inside my milk duct.
Mhm.
And so I was like, okay. And they said, well, we see this in young women because they are, have children or they're nursing or they nurse, so we see that sometimes, but we may have to do a biopsy just to confirm, we want to make sure that there's nothing going on. And I'm like, well, what could be going on? I'm not thinking anything of it. I really,
Right.
because I'm thinking like breast cancer doesn't happen until you don't discover it until 40 years old. Like I always thought over 40 because that's when you get mammograms, right? Well,
Right.
traditionally that's when you had got mammograms. So I went to get the biopsy done, and the results came back a couple of days later, and the doctor pulled me in. Now, before the doctor pulled me in, though, I was praying, and I was in the middle of being ordained, like going through my ordination process to be a minister,
Mhm.
and I was literally a minister in training at that point.
Mhm.
And I told my pastor at the time, I said, I'm going about to go in to get my results. I said, but I prayed about it. And when I prayed, God had revealed to me that it was going to be positive. But he also reminded me of his goodness. He said that it's going to be positive, but you're going to get to this. And I remember it was something in these words of, I'm going to bring you to it, but I'm also going to bring you through it. And you're going to get to the other side of this, and you're going to share with other women how to overcome and how to kind of be more aware of our bodies, earlier, right? Like early
Mhm.
detection. And so I was like, okay. And I heard that, and I felt that. So when the doctor came in, when I went to the appointment, and the doctor said, I was positive that it was positive for breast cancer. I was like, I shook my head, and I got emotional like right before the visit was over. And I said, I'm not emotional because I don't know the result. Like I don't know how this is going to end. I said, I'm just emotional that God already told me I was going to go through this. Now I don't know what this journey is going to look like. I just know I'm going to go through this, right? And so that began my process.
Mhm.
And so that began my process. And so um at that point, I went back home, and my husband at the time, I shared with him, um, I was like, babe, they said I have breast cancer.
Mhm.
And his grandmother had just died the year before from cancer.
Oh wow.
And he was like, I can't do this. I was like, huh? What? He's like, I can't do this. He's like, I can't do this. This is a lot for me right now. I don't know. I need some time away. I need to walk away from this for a minute because this is a lot.
Oh
And I was
wow.
like, what do you mean? And he decided to walk away from me.
Wow.
And he literally walked away from me during that time. Um, and it was a tough journey. But the blessing of it, I had my family here. Like my mom was here and my sisters. And so, and then I had my spiritual family from the church and things like that. So, um, I started my process. So once I got the diagnosis, I had to meet with John at the time was John Hopkins, and I wasn't really feeling John Hopkins that much. So I wanted to get a
Mhm.
second opinion. And I asked my pastors if there was anyone that he had, he'd known or whatever. And so he paired me with this woman named Charnice Carter. She was a breast cancer survivor. Her and her husband had cancer together, and they cancer went into remission, and then it came back for her husband, and he eventually passed. And she started a nonprofit called Juice for Life. It was all about
Mhm.
juicing and being healthy and being aware of the possibility of cancer, try to rid
Right.
yourself of cancer and things like that. And so he partnered with her, and she shared with me two doctors two black doctors, two black female doctors
Oh,
too at that. And I was
wonderful.
like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And Dr. Regina Hampton and Dr. Nia Banks. Dr. Regina Hampton was a surgeon, a general surgeon, and Dr. Nia Banks is a plastic surgeon. And so their offices are right next to each other. And so I had the privilege of meeting with both of them, right? On the same day, back to back. So I go into their office and I meet with Dr. Hampton first. And she said, with you being so young, at the time I was 32 years old, with you being so young, I want to know, did you have any symptoms or anything? Did your doctor find it all of a sudden? I said, no, I actually found it. I said, I had some tenderness in that area. I said, and I just wasn't sure. And I went to my first physical exam here in the DC area. I was like, can you check this while you at it?
Right.
And so she was like, so you found it yourself? And I said, yeah. So she was like, it's about 1.5 centimeters. And I said, yeah. That's what they had told me after they did the biopsy. They went in and, had to look to see how much it could be. She said, well, what we would do is I could go in, remove the lump, and we can do, chemotherapy and radiation.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, or you can do a mastectomy, total mastectomy, or like a nipple sparing mastectomy. She's like, or, she gave me so many options, right? And I said,
Right.
I would feel comfortable with doing a mastectomy. So I opted to do, from the surgeon side, I opted to do a nipple sparing mastectomy, where they basically go in and they take out everything from the inside of your breast, but the outside shell is still yours. Like
Mm-hmm.
your skin, your nipple, all of that. So I did that. And the plastic surgeon, Nia Banks, she then came in and she put in expanders because I was later going to get implants. And
Mm-hmm.
so she came in and she put the expanders in. And then during that time, um, I was still dealing with the fact that my husband had walked out, right? And I was
Right.
still struggling with that. But in the same time, I was being trained to be a minister. And I could not for the life of me understand what God was doing in that season. I was like, God, hold up.
Right.
This ain't funny. I don't know what you're trying to do. This is
It's a
crazy, right?
lot.
It's a
Yeah.
lot. It's a lot. And then that during that time while I was um it felt like while I was going through um prepare like deciding what surgery I would have, deciding if like hearing about like my options for if whether I needed chemo or radiation and all of those different things and some other stuff I'll tell you about in a second. It felt like God was just he was distracting me by ministry, right?
Mm.
It was so crazy because things were still happening from a ministerial standpoint. I was still walking forward, like, still going to church. At the time, me and my husband was going to the same church, so still going to church, still going through my trainings, and everything that I was supposed to do, still preaching the gospel, just like a whole lot,
Like
right? I was
nothing
still
was happening.
nothing,
Yeah.
right? So I was like, okay, this is interesting. And when I had to plan for surgery, I had to take some time off from work and things like that. But I was planning for surgery, and um, I started just praying and fasting, and I said,
Mm-hmm.
God, I know what you said, and I know that what the other side could possibly look like. I
Mm-hmm.
said, and I am trusting you. I am trusting you. So Proverbs 3, verse 5-7 became my favorite verse. You trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean
All your
not to
heart.
your
Lean
own
not to your
understanding.
own understanding.
And
Yes.
yes,
Yes. In
acknowledge him in
all thy
all your ways,
ways.
and he
Yes.
will direct your path. And
Absolutely.
I had to lean on that. I had to trust in him the entire time without thinking of what my situation was. It was like a blind trust because I didn't know how this thing was going to play out. So I prepared for surgery, and family came from New York, from PA, local family here, the DMV, for my surgery. My surgery actually had to go a little bit longer than they expected. They took out 3 lymph nodes under my arms, and then they removed everything from out of both of my breasts. And
Mm-hmm.
when I came to on the other side, right? When I came to on the other side, um, all I could remember was was God reminding me that I told you I would bring you through this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just, I was out of it, of course. And I remember my mother coming, and she was just like, I knew that you could do it. I knew that, you know, that God would bring you through this. For some reason, your spirit, your relaxed spirit, and your calmness and your trust in God helped me to overcome. Because my mother she was a nervous wreck. She was just all
Yeah.
emotional and everything.
Worried.
And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and she said, I knew that you could get to the other side. And I got through it, and I found out a friend of mine's had breast cancer from work, and
Mm-hmm.
that we were going through surgery at the same time. So she had got surgery, and she had to go through intense chemotherapy and radiation because hers was aggressive. She was triple negative. And
Mm-hmm.
because I was not, and mine was not aggressive, I did not need chemotherapy or radiation by the grace of God. And I'm ever so grateful for God for that. They found that my lymph nodes were negative, that it didn't spread and anything. And I mean, I'm so grateful for that. I caught it early enough that I did not have to go through that. But the doctors wanted to put me on tamoxifen.
Mm-hmm. The
And
pill version.
tamoxifen was going to alter my hormone levels again. And because this was hormonal invasive, I refused to do tamoxifen. And
Mm.
I told them, they said, my oncologist was like, well, you got to do something, Tammy. And she even had my surgeon talk to me. And I said, well, why would I have to do tamoxifen if I did a bilateral mastectomy, which reduced my chances significantly of reoccurrence to less than 2%? You know,
Right.
and so I said, what would be my chances of reoccurrence if I took tamoxifen and if I didn't? She said it would be the same. And I said, I'm not taking tamoxifen. It caused short-term memory loss, blindness, early dementia, early menopause, early signs of this and that, and it could cause ovarian cancer. I said, no, I'm not going to take tamoxifen. I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my diet, and I'm going to eat healthier, and I'm going to exercise. And I immediately started juicing like what Sharnice was sharing,
Yeah.
Juice for Life. So I started juicing. I stopped eating meat, and I came pescatarian. So I ate fish, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
eat other meat, and fruits and vegetables. And I started exercising, and I started walking every single day. When I say exercising, I was walking every single day. I did not do any rigorous exercise. I just did diet, and I started walking, and my body just started healing itself. Um, During the time I'm supposed to be bedridden, my mom would come in. She'd be checking on me. I'd be up walking around trying to, I stopped taking the oxy or whatever it was they
The
gave me.
pain medicine.
Yeah, and I just started
Yeah.
trusting God, and I started just praying about it. And I remember at that time, I felt like I was losing everything, but also gaining everything at the same time, because
Mm.
I was I had to terminate a pregnancy. Me and my husband had found out that I was pregnant, and because they didn't know if I was gonna have to get chemo radiation, I had to terminate a pregnancy. He walked out, and then I came back to work after having surgery, and they told me that my position was being eliminated. And I was lost. I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, because at that time we had four children. I didn't know what I was gonna do, and we had three children, and I'll tell you about the fourth one. I didn't know what I was gonna do, and God just kept reminding me that He was gonna bring me to it and get me through
And
it all
through
at the
it.
same
Yeah.
time. So I was like, okay, God. Um, while I was recovering, I was asked by my husband's family's church to be the keynote speaker for the women's conference.
Mm-hmm.
This was like the first time I was ever asked to be a keynote speaker, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"But don't they know that I'm going through my
A
breast
lot.
cancer?"
Like a lot.
And then they know that they family member just walked out on me during this process. Yeah, but it was God. So I accepted the assignment, and I went and I preached at the church. When I got there, I mean, it was just, the family was just so embracing, and people had traveled with me from Maryland to PA for the speaking event, and I had came with a whole script and everything, girl. And And halfway through the script, I had to put that thing down. And I just started speaking whatever
Yeah,
God laid
from
on
the
my heart.
heart.
I just
Yeah.
started speaking from
Hmm.
my heart. I never said anything bad about my husband at the time. I didn't, dog him out. I just talked about me. And I talked about just God being in the midst of all things, no matter what we may be going through, no matter what we
Yeah.
may be feeling, whatever it is that, and I explained what I was going through in case anybody didn't know. And as far as like my testimony with breast cancer, and
Yeah.
people did not know. And then I had everybody stand up at the end. And I said, I want you to take 3 steps forward. I
Hmm.
said, those 3 steps are for, and I just started naming things. Those 3 steps are for your health. Those 3 steps are for your finances. Those 3 steps are for whatever it is that you needed to step forward to so that you can get to the other side and start
Yeah.
experiencing your victory. I said, those 3 steps is towards your victory. I said,
Yeah.
and that is where I am today. So I want you to come on this journey with me and take those steps towards
3
whatever it is.
steps. Yeah.
Yeah, towards your victory. So after that speaking engagement, um, my husband had reached out to me and he was like, I think we need to talk. I want to come home and all of this type of stuff. Now I had already gone through what I felt like was the worst part that I would
Grieving of
go
the
through.
relationship.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then I had gone through surgery and I started feeling like, better about myself. And fortunately and unfortunately, I did accept him back temporarily. I accepted him back. And at the time, our son, our oldest son, he started having an imaginary friend. His name was Mikey. He was like, Mikey was sad because he had to go to heaven. He wanted to be here. He he
Mm.
is he was just talking to him all the time. And he was like, he's my friend. And I thought he just had an imaginary friend named Mikey that, okay, whatever. And lo and behold, that whole time he was playing with his younger brother because I wound up getting pregnant. And I had no idea. Mikey stopped talking to Malachi
Mm.
once I got pregnant.
Wow.
So Malachi was no longer talk. I said, where did Mikey go? He said, I don't know, but he's not here no more. And I haven't talked to him in a long time. And I just could remember him saying this. And so my husband was like, Mikey, he's like, man, that's crazy. I found out I was pregnant. And I said, so what do we want to name our child? And he's like, I don't know. Just wait till we find out what the sex is or whatever, right? And so I was like, okay. So we found out the sex. We found out it was a boy. And I came home from work and I was like, so have you been thinking about the names? Now that we found out it's a boy or whatever. And he was like, he's like, I don't know. I was playing around with a few names, but what do you think? And I said, I don't know. God placed on my heart we should name him Micah. And I said, when I looked it up, Micah means, Micah could be Mikey for short, Michael, Mike, whatever. It was like different
Yeah.
variations and short versions of it. And he said, remember when Malachi had that imaginary friend named Mikey? And I said, yeah. He said, don't you think that's kind of strange that now we're having a son, we're naming him Mikey, and Malachi kept referring to him as a boy. And he kept
Mm.
saying his name was Mikey or something. Like he kept saying it. And so I felt like God was giving me back my son. Like,
Hmm.
and because while I was pregnant, me and my husband, we wound up separating. And I told him this time that it was going to be final. Like that was it. Because we just couldn't get back on track.
To where
Right.
you were. Hmm.
Right. And I was 8 months pregnant when he walked out. And when I tell you, it was the hardest thing I had to do was like letting him go while, continuing my pregnancy and while finishing. My oncologist told me I shouldn't have no kid because I could risk the chance of my hormone level being rising and that
Yeah.
I would, things could possibly happen. And she was like, we have to watch you closely. So they had to watch me closely for the whole entire pregnancy. But then a year after the baby came, they still had to watch me. And by the grace of God, my hormone level remained consistent. Um,
Mm.
but you know, anytime I was asked to share my story and my journey, you know, at that time I was at a really low place because I had lost my job. My marriage was going through turmoil, and I didn't know. yeah, I didn't know, as much as I do now about breast cancer. But what I do
Hmm.
know is that my faith got me through it. I knew that, like, no matter what, I could trust God. And from this experience, I became such a resilient, like, how you have like a resilience in you after, like, I
Yeah.
felt like I had been through some stuff, and I know people got
You
it
feel
worse.
like you can overcome anything now.
Yeah,
It's like when you go
yeah,
through something that's so great, it feels like
yes,
nothing else can come your way that's going to be
yes,
that difficult anymore.
yes.
Uh,
Exactly. And at the same time, that friend that I told you had breast cancer, she wound up passing away. And I remember I asked God, I was like, well, why did she, like, because as I was going through my stuff, um, and her and I, like, I had wore wigs for her, like, all that, we went through the stuff side by side. And I remember as we were both in recovery, and
mhm.
her breast cancer came back. But it came back in her spine. Her cancer came back, but it came back in
It
her spine.
metastasized.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
so she wound up having, it came in her spine, and then it went to her brain, and she died within days. And when I say I never questioned God, but at that time I was like, God, I don't understand this, and not that I wanted it to be me, but I didn't want it to be her
Right.
either,
Right.
And I was like, why couldn't we both of us be spared? It's just it was that thing. And God reminded me that, what our seasons are, what they are, and
Yeah.
that he still had work for me to do. So I had vowed that during my time, like, after recovery, that I would make sure that women were educated about breast cancer awareness, and that young women under the age of 40, that they would demand exams of their breasts during their GYN appointments, and that
Yeah.
they would check their breasts on a regular basis. I spoke at Towson University. I spoke at Kingdom Embassy, the ARC. I spoke at all these, at VOA. And during these speaking engagements over the course of the years that immediately presided from me going through it, God allowed me to be able to be a keynote speaker at several conferences, and showed me why he had brought me to it, to bring me out
Yeah.
of it, right? And
Hmm.
showed me so many women and young women, and even men, that had gone through either breast cancer or
Yeah.
some form of cancer, that then I began to minister to, and they began to minister to me, and I began to understand the why.
The why. Hmm.
And I began to say, guess what, God? Whatever it is you'll have me do, I'm going to do,
Yeah.
because you
I,
spared my life. You know what I mean?
yeah. I think a lot of times we don't
Sorry.
realize how our life is not our own,
Yes.
right? And how what we go through in life is always for somebody else. It's never for
Yes.
ourselves. And even when people pass away, their life still meant something.
Yes.
And it still carries on in some shape, form, or fashion. And it's like sometimes that that end or that level that God says, okay, no, your time is now. They've done all they needed to do here on earth. Like
Yeah.
they fulfilled they fulfilled everything they were supposed to fulfill.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I know for myself, right? My mom, when she went through it, and then now being an adult and having the conversations, with doctors all the time because of trying to make sure that I don't, develop it or try to catch it early or, all of those things. It's very nerve wracking, like very nerve wracking. So I completely understand. And I used to be, honestly, when it came to check, I didn't want to check because I always felt like I was going to get it and I don't want to hear it. So it was like, if I'm going to get it, I'm just going to get it, but I don't want to know about it. I want it to be, oh, it just happened, and you find out later because I didn't want to have the same experience. But now as a mom, it's a different. It's like I battle. Like I mean, when I battle with, okay, I don't want them to go through what I went through, right? Like I don't want them to have the experience of seeing me get sick or seeing me deal with, you know, being ill all the time. I remember what that feeling was as a kid, watching my mom deal with it. And honestly, when she passed away, like literally seeing her deteriorate before my eyes, little by little, was very heartbreaking. So I just didn't know how to address it, because I'm always saying, like, you know what? I don't want them to go through that. I don't want to go through it, and I don't want them to go through it. But then it's like, but I still want to be here for them. So the be here for them had to weigh heavier than the I don't want to go through it. And so I did start, making sure I do the mammograms and things like that, because I mean, I had to do it earlier because my mom had it early. And so it was like, yeah, your mama had this, you BRCA2 positive, you have this, like it's just so many different things that kind of go against what I have going on. So it was like, yeah, you got to do it. And so I think a lot of times we hear, right? We hear breast cancer, breast cancer, breast cancer, check your boobs, check your boobs. But a lot of times we don't always understand what it really is. Because I didn't understand the hard pebble feel. I didn't understand, I would
Yeah.
feel lumps in my boob all the time. And I would get oh, you just have dense boobs. You have a lot of
Mm,
fatty tissue. Like that's
yeah.
what you would hear. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. So it's all good. Because that's just normal to you.
Mm,
But then when you have other symptoms, you do have to fight to say, hey, yeah, no, check this though. Like
right.
I hear you, but but check it. Don't just
Mhm.
tell me, oh, you're good, because,
Right.
your perspective is
Right.
it's all good. I've seen it
Mm.
one too many times.
And let me tell you, I can tell you after a few of the different speaking engagements that I went to, women, either my friends, my close friends, after they knew my testimony, or women that I would run into after different various speaking events or women conferences, they would come up to me or they would call me later on and say, I went and had my breast done. They
Yeah,
found a lump. It was benign. I went, found a lump. I had breast cancer or whatever it might
yeah,
be. And I've literally had women from me sharing my testimony be able to now face their fears of not going to get that mammogram or not checking. And come to find out, I mean, a couple of females had lumps in their breast that they had to get a biopsy of. And a few of them did, what they
yeah,
were, it was benign. But there was some that did have cancer, and, and sometimes, and I tell women this, the whole lumpectomy, whatever it is, lumpectomy, whatever, I forget how to,
lumpectomy. Yeah,
that,
look, we
that whole
we ain't the
thing,
doctors.
that
I'm having the
lumpectomy.
medical professional next week, because
Okay.
I
When they come
they
on,
can they
yeah.
can tell all the specifics.
Yeah. When they tell you to do that lump thing, I tell women, if you have the option to get a mastectomy, get it. And the reason why I say that is because they can reconstruct your boobs, but they can't reconstruct you if cancer just takes you out.
Ooh,
And I'm
girl.
telling you that because what are you holding on to?
Yeah.
Because I thought the same thing. I was like, oh no, just take a little lump. I'm not saying this, I don't want to scare anybody listening, but I will say this. Most people that just get the lump taken out, they
Sure.
it comes back. And I don't care how much chemo radiation they do,
Mm,
it comes back.
mm,
And by the
mm,
grace of
mm,
God, you are reducing. If you decide to listen, I'm gonna go ahead and get this mastectomy, and you don't have to get a total mastectomy. You can get there's nipple sparing mastectomies. That's what I got. I'm happy with my breast today. I'm very happy with my breast. But I did that, and or you could get a nipple sparing or total mastectomy or whatever. But I say that to say is then you didn't need
mm.
chemo. I didn't need chemo radiation, and even if you did, you combat it with eating healthy and
Yeah,
exercise. And diet and exercise, I'm telling you, heals most things.
yeah,
Most things. Because
yeah.
that's
Because
how
what you
God
put in
built
your
our
body
bodies.
is what you
Yeah,
come out. Like, I mean,
absolutely.
like some people would dare to say in real, like, I've heard medical professionals and dietitians and all these people, they'll dare to say most of our illness is food induced. And
Yes.
it's like the things that we're putting into our bodies because of so many chemicals have been placed on the food. We
Yeah.
don't see it being grown. We don't know what they're doing to grow it, but
Yep.
we just eating it. And
Yeah.
our insides are a hot mess.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
having, a very healthy diet is super important
Yeah.
in general. I
Yeah.
remember my mom going through that process. She used to
Hmm.
do Dr. Savy all the time.
Oh yeah.
Herbs. I mean,
Mm.
she even went to Honduras to his,
Oh wow. Oh wow.
yes, I will never forget that. She went to
Wow.
Honduras to his, I don't know if you call it a camp or whatever it
Yeah.
was, but she went there and she went like at the end.
Yeah.
Like it was like it's too late at the end of her process. And I remember her saying she wished she had went sooner, but
It
though
could have
she
healed.
still,
It could have probably
yeah,
healed it. Yeah.
yeah. But she did do a mastectomy. She did do the lumpectomy. Um,
Yeah.
and she did what do you, the lumpectomy and the actual breast, um, tumor removal.
Hmm.
So, but again, you're like literally the second person that have said mastectomy is the way to go,
Yeah.
because you don't the risk has
It reduced.
a drastic
Yes.
reduction.
Yes. Yes. In addition to that, um, they told me, and most of us are, the cancer is what they call hormone invasive, right? So I'm like, well, what hormonally could be invading my body? And
Mm-hmm.
what you just mentioned, the food that we eat, the medicines that we take. Think about it. A
Yeah,
lot of women get on birth control or some kind of,
at 18,
yep, yep.
16, yeah,
And you don't know the effects of it later on. I will not
right.
never let my daughters get on birth control. Do you have to be celibate or you have to whatever figure it out?
Deal with the
But it ain't gonna
consequence.
be
Yeah,
that. And
yeah,
because that start and stop it heightens your hormones and your estrogen levels,
yeah,
and it lowers it every time you take them. Because you family planning, so to speak, right? So you're taking them, you're elevating your hormones, elevating estrogen levels, all of that. Everything's elevated. Then you have a baby. Then you go do it again, and you put your body through that over and over again, right? Trying
yeah,
to family plan, so to speak, right?
yeah,
And I'm not just saying it's just birth control, but I'm thinking there's multiple factors. The hormones we put in our body, birth control, food, hair products, skincare products.
all
Stop
of
buying
it.
your, stop buying these skincare products at the dollar store and stuff like that. Go get high quality skincare products. Use some juices and berries, honey. Put some oils in there.
Yeah, or just herb it out,
Or just
right?
herbs. Yeah, natural herbs. Because
Yeah,
that our body is made up of minerals and herbs. You
yeah.
know,
And God created
yeah,
it. And it's
yeah,
like, why aren't we using
yes,
the herbs that He creates to actually
yes,
penetrate and fuel, you know,
mm-mm.
this body that He
Right.
gave us?
And it's
We
not
don't
easy.
really, oh no, because they don't always. But the crazy part is like the taste bud issue is
Yep.
really self-inflicted, right?
Yes.
Because if you detoxed your body and got
Hmm.
rid of all of the stuff that's inside and started eating healthier, the taste of those things would become acclimated to you. And that wouldn't be considered nasty
Exactly.
anymore or bitter or whatever the case, whatever words we going to add to it on, I
Yeah.
don't want that because it ain't sweet or,
Right.
super savoring, it would change. It
Hmm.
really would change. Now, it's
Hmm.
not easy to make that change because I myself ain't doing that. I'm
Right.
just,
Right.
being honest.
Right.
However, I do think it would be beneficial
Right.
if we
Absolutely.
ever decided to do that, right?
Right. Hmm.
Wow, today's episode is a good one. I know you're enjoying it, and we'll get back to it shortly. Just wanted to take a quick break to let you know that Tammy would love for you to share any questions, comments, or topic ideas you have with her. All you have to do is send them to her in an email to podcast@IamTammyNicole.com. Thank you, and without further ado, let's get back into today's show.
What advice would you give someone who has just been diagnosed with breast cancer or is currently undergoing treatment?
I would say, I know people say this is a cliche, but I mean it. I would say don't stress. I would say not to stress. Make sure you have a clear mind so that you can make sound decisions. I would say in that decision making, make sure you get more than one opinion. Do not just go with the first opinion and weigh all of your options. So those are my top three. Don't be stressing. Stress is only going to make matters worse. And then the second piece, making sure that you get more than one opinion. And last but not least, making sure that you weigh all your options and make the best decision for yourself. Don't think about your breast. I mean, I'm not, and I hate to say it like this, but don't look. I don't want to lose my breast. It's either that or you're like, what? I mean, I'm not trying to
Yeah,
scare.
but that's a
I don't
real
want to.
thing, though,
I don't want to
right?
say it like that and scare people,
Yeah,
but
no, so it does. It makes a whole lot of sense, but it's
hmm
a real thing,
it is.
right?
People don't want to lose their
So
breast.
it's the womanhood, though. It's not.
Yeah,
I think it's beyond the physicality of the boob,
yeah,
and it's more about the emotional identity
yeah.
of that the boobs provide, right? You as
Yeah,
a
like you
woman,
can't nurse anymore. Yeah,
your femininity and your womanhood resides in boobs and booty
yeah,
and hair,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So a lot of times we attach our identity to these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore when we go through situations like this, it makes
Mm-hmm.
it the hardest thing to do,
Yeah.
especially if you are a woman who is single
Mm-hmm.
and want relationship. You like,
Mm-hmm.
wait a minute, I can't lose that. They won't look at me anymore,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then again, if you're a woman who's in relationship with a
Mm-hmm.
man who you've been with for however long, it makes it difficult too, because you like, wait a minute, he may not look at me the same. He may
Mm-hmm.
not want me. And now he's going to walk out the door to get his needs met when I'm here,
Mm-hmm.
have been here, but because I have had this situation, it's now not, I'm no longer desirable.
Mm-hmm.
Or, and that's a real thing. So
Yeah.
it's like, yes, you are battling with the what I call the logical things of the
Mm-hmm.
situation, life or death. Like, are my boobs worth my life? No, not really. But then that emotional thing is real. That
Mm-hmm.
that that struggle of having to change or find your identity again
Mm-hmm.
because you've had this major physical change is it's real.
Yeah.
And as a thriver, I love the word thriving versus
Yes.
surviving because it's like
Yes. Me too.
I'm still moving. I'm still,
Yes. Yes.
but as a thriver, how do you what encouragement could you give to a woman whose hope may be lost, who feels like this emotional break is really there,
Mm-hmm.
because they're in the middle of it. They
Yeah.
may be trying to make the decision right now if they should do a mastectomy or if they should, basically just do a lumpectomy and save their boobs.
Yeah. I think that, you really have to spend, and it's not for everybody. I get everybody's in different places spiritually, but you got to spend some alone time with God. You
Jesus.
really got to sit
Hmm.
down and have like some real conversations, not no family members and friends in your ear, none of that type of stuff. Just sitting down and hearing from God. Um, that to me makes all the difference. We don't realize how having a relationship with God like a personal relationship with God can make all the difference. Um, and, you know, I think that ultimately, you know, the best thing I could say is, trust what you're feeling, right?
Yeah.
Trust what you're feeling. Don't doubt, oh, if I take my, I'm gonna do a mastectomy. And if that's what you really feel and you feel like that's going to be, allow you to have the best results, then go with that. don't second guess yourself, because you got that notion or that idea for a reason, whether you're praying or not. If that was
Yeah.
what came to you, like, go with your gut, go with what it is
Yeah.
that you feel, and then, I mean, I'm going to say pray about it, because that's just what I do. But if that's not what you do what you do, but trust that gut, and your spirit going to always speak to you.
Yeah.
Your spirit going to speak to you, whether you spiritual or not. That inner man going to
Your
talk to you.
inner man
It's
pops
going to
up,
talk to you.
right?
You know what I mean?
You may
And
not like what it says though,
yeah,
but at the
yeah,
same time,
yeah,
you do have to make
yeah.
that decision.
Yeah, and life is about choices. Don't beat yourself up thinking, "Oh, I'm not gonna make the right choice," or what. You got to stop thinking and worry about the wrong things. Just really put in your mind that, you know what, I'm gonna make the best decision for me, and I got to live with whatever that decision is, and I got to trust God with that, right? And
Yeah.
live with that. Live with that.
Yeah.
But I will
Whatever
say,
decision you make it with peace. That's
absolutely, absolutely. And when you make that decision, you made it with peace. Also know that there's work that comes with it. So
yeah.
you can't just make a decision and then just think things are going to happen. There's work that comes with it. You may have to do a lifestyle change. You may have to eat differently, or whatever the case may be. You may have to do some exercise. Now you may have to um stop excuse me, smoking, drinking, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You may
Oh,
have to
you're
stop,
fine.
really have a lifestyle change. If you a worrier, stop worrying. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You might have to really learn how to stop worrying, because that can have an effect on it.
Yeah.
Find a place,
Worry is nothing but fear.
right? Yeah, and it shows your lack of confidence and trust in God. And so, that's really what I would say. It's hard, because when somebody's going through it, it's really a scary situation. It's
It
a
is.
scary situation. But I just say, I can honestly say that prayer changes things. I know that, because every time I have, and it's ongoing. It's an ongoing relationship with God that helps prayer to change things. Because if you
Yeah.
don't have an ongoing relationship with God, praying right now, it may or may not help the situation. And I don't know. I can't speak for God.
Yeah, you don't know what he might
I
do.
don't know what
He
he
may,
might do.
so
I don't know. He might
sometimes I'll
surprise
be,
us.
yeah. He surprised you, and sometimes he say,
Yep.
"Okay, say I did that time because I told
Uh-huh.
you to come back, and you didn't want to come
Exactly.
back." But I
Exactly.
showed that one last time. Yeah,
Yes.
he does what
Yes.
he does. We don't ever what he say. We don't know his thoughts,
Yep.
or his ways because they
That's
belong to
right.
him.
That's
We
right.
just need to follow suit and do what we need to do.
That's right.
But I really, really, really appreciate you sharing your story because,
Yeah.
again, it's helpful for me too because
Mhm.
I have decisions to make myself,
Yeah.
and it's like you just got to make the decision, you
Yeah.
know. Sometimes it's preventative
Yeah.
decisions, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's reactive in response to certain things. And I just think
Yeah.
that, again, you have to make the decision that works for you,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
Because even in making these decisions, it's, we talk self love all the time over
Mm.
here, and it's basically allowing you to love on yourself just a little bit more. It may not
Mm.
be the same kind of love that you wanted to give without going through the turmoil or the
Mm.
experience, but just addressing the issue, just moving through the issue is showing yourself so much love.
That's right. That's right.
And if the people want to get in touch with you, how would they reach you?
Definitely hit me up on social media at I am Tammy Torres. I am TamiTorres. You can also follow me at the gym on all social media outlets as well.
Awesome. Again, thank you for joining us. And you guys know,
Yes.
love yourself so much that the love from others is a bonus. Have a
Yes.
good one.
Thank you, Tammy. I appreciate you.
All righty.
Yeah.
That's a wrap on another episode of Loving Me Before I Love You. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a second to show your support by subscribing and leaving a positive rating and review on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Stay connected with Tammy. Make sure you're following her on Instagram and TikTok at Coach Tammy Nicole. If you like to work with Tammy or have any questions you'd like her to answer, please head over to www.IamTammyNicole.com. Until next time, always remember to love yourself so much that the love from others is a bonus.